This is Christian College at Pomona College.
For 6 minutes, so maybe I'm done now. Looks pretty good.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks.
Hello, welcome to Tea with Professors. I'm here with creative writing professor Dr. Lethem.
Very few people actually call me doctor. My credentials are kind of a little bit bogus. I only have a honorary doctorate, so I usually just go by professor or hey you.
What was teaching at Pomona like when you first started?
I was very excited to get this job, and I was very intimidated by it in many ways. I'd never been a full-time professor anywhere before. I'd only been a visiting writer in various departments, often in MFA programs. So I was comfortable in the classroom, but what I didn't have any experience with really was being committed to an institution, being part of a faculty, being part of the structure of an English department where you can be someone's advisor or oversee a thesis or also involved in interdepartmental affairs. So it was all really very new to me. I'd been kind of a lone wolf. And the Disney chair was a very prestigious thing. I felt very lucky to be hired for it. And David Foster Wallace had this job, and I just felt like I had a lot to prove and a lot to live up to. So my first semester here, I remember I was just bearing down very hard, very intent on delivering extraordinary result, which isn't actually always the best way to teach. I think I was probably a lot better experience for people a semester or 2 or 3 later when I really began to ease into it and become a little more myself.
Why did you decide to focus on creative writing?
Well, I teach creative writing because that's what I do. I'm a novelist and a short story writer and an essayist, and that's what I committed my life to now so long ago that I can't even really remember wanting to do anything else. I was starting to try to write fiction when I was a teenager. So this kind of teaching, which is the only kind I can really imagine myself being qualified for, is a direct extension of my life commitment to telling stories.
Was there a time earlier in life when there was an inflection point where you decided I have to be a writer or have to go into reading?
Well, I always loved reading. I grew up loving reading, and that really is what pointed me in this direction. For me, there was a really definite inflection point, but it's one you might not expect. My father is a painter, a visual artist, and I grew up thinking that I was going to do that too. I would hang out in his studio and I would paint, and I ended up going to a special high school in New York for the visual arts. And so the real change, the real turning point was when I was about 17, 18, 19, I suddenly realized that I wanted to write novels instead. And I gave up making paintings and sculptures. That was the decisive turning around point for me.
Finding one's own path along the way.
Yeah.
Shortbread cookies.
They're great. And the caramel.
How did you make connections with your students?
Well, one of the things I understood right away and liked right away was that this was a place where class size was small, professors' doors were open, students were accustomed to being able to walk in and talk to you, and that culture was very agreeable to me. It helped me become less formal with my students, that we would have these encounters and conversations outside of the classroom. So I've always really actually kind of treasured my office hours, and I'm often in my office sitting here with the door open, even when it's not my officially posted office hours, and I like the commerce among students and professors here. Other than that, it's funny, Claremont is a town, I came here expecting to live in a college town. I thought I would see my students all the time in the coffee shops or the record store, but you guys stick to campus. Downtown Claremont is it doesn't feel very student-y. So that part of living amongst, because I live right in Claremont and I'm here all the time, but I don't see my students that often outside of campus buildings.
Drawing upon that, back, I think it was junior year, was with a group of friends. I wouldn't have noticed it myself, but one of them had noticed Mud Professor in Blaze Pizza.
We all need to eat, and there's only 7 or 8 restaurants worth going to in this town.
Yeah, small world. Are there any cafes or restaurants down at the Claremont Village you like to go to?
Well, I like Augie's Coffee in the packing house, and in general, I like hanging out in the packing house because I can go in and look at the used books. I'm a bookstore addict, and there aren't enough of them in this town, so that, especially like old books, so that shop is enticing to me.
We reached the fun fact segment.
Great.
Do you have a daily ritual?
Well, when I'm on my game and I'm writing a novel, I try to work every single day. And so, by far the best time to do that is first thing. So, my most important daily ritual, the one that's the least frivolous, is certainly that I try to get up and write every single day. And I work at home on a treadmill desk. So I'm standing and walking while I work. And it doesn't always happen for me. Sometimes there's child care distractions, or I have too much to do on campus and I have to get up and rush over here. But if I'm really organizing my life the way I should be, I always do that first. Other rituals are a little less dignified and a little less important, but the heart of my ritual activity is the writing itself.
What is your number one tip for aspiring writers and creatives?
Well, the simplest thing to say, and it's what almost anyone would tell you, is you've got to write constantly. Keep trying, keep doing it, produce pages. I probably had loosely 10 years worth of unpublishable work to get behind me before I began to write anything that anyone would care to read. It sounds kind of discouraging, but you look at it as just part of the process, part of the growth curve. It's something you've got to do. So get to it. Be working all the time. I would extend that and say, also, try different things. Don't just have one idea and grind away at it. I'm going to write this novel and just endlessly work on it. Mix it up. Write poems, stories, approach different things from different angles. Experiment, because in becoming a writer, you might not always be right in your guesses about what kind of work you're going to do. So it's good to discover possibilities by trying different things.
If you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be?
It's a strange question because, of course, it's very hard to envision alternatives. Your own childhood, your own coming of age seems sort of written in stone. It's like an inevitability. But I guess I would have traveled more. I didn't get to Europe, for example, until I was in my 30s. I think it would have been amazing and I know people whose families enabled them to travel internationally as children, and I've actually taken my own children to Germany and Italy, and that would be a cool thing. I would have added in.
Definitely, like early age experience, maybe that real world connection may have seeped into the writing somehow, one way or another.
Sure.
If you could have dinner with one famous person, alive or past, who would it be and what would you talk about?
I think that, there are a lot of very exotic possibilities. I think the person I would pick is a writer who was tremendously important to me when I was growing up, named Philip K. Dick. And he died in 1982, so it was when I was 19 years old. It would have been possible to meet him, but I didn't manage to. But I've involved myself so extensively in his work over the years, and I've even become part of his posthumous legacy because I've edited some of his unfinished books that he wrote but that came out afterwards. I think we'd have a lot to talk about, so I'd be interested to actually get a chance to spend some time with him.
Further down the editing process, like, hey, what was this about? Or
Yeah.
why you may have decided to add that line. Full circle question. If you could pass on any advice to your students, what would it be?
Well, that's pretty simple. Don't be afraid to screw up. Don't be risk averse. Fool around, make mistakes, experiment, take risks. You need to fail and stumble.
Great. Thank you for interviewing and
Sure.
having tea together.
Yeah, you bet. Take care.
Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.